Meanwhile, another Russian partner is in the headlines. I'm talking about North Korea. Their supreme leader Kim Jong-un has issued a statement of support for Russia and President Vladimir Putin. North Korean state media published the message earlier today. Let me quote from what it says. Justice is sure to win, and the Russian people will continue to add glory to the history of victory. Kim went on to say that he would be, and I'm quoting, he would be holding hands firmly with the Russian president in conformity with the common desire of the peoples of the two countries to fulfill the grand goal of building a powerful country. But this isn't the first time that Kim has publicly shown support for Putin. He's been firmly in Putin's camp since Russia invaded Ukraine last year. He has continuously blamed the West. He accuses them of forcing Russia's hand. When the war began last February, this is what North Korea said, and I'm quoting again, "The root cause of the Ukraine crisis totally lies in the hegemonic policy of the US and the West, which enforce themselves in high-handedness and abuse of power against other countries." So Kim's latest tribute to Putin is a continuation of the same stand. This time, though, he did not mention the war. He praised what he called Putin's correct decision and guidance against hostile forces. North Korea is not talking peace. It is only professing its support for Russia. And this is a relationship that goes back many decades. In fact, it would be fair to say that the Soviet Union helped give birth to North Korea and the Kim dynasty. Before the Koreas were divided, it was one nation under Japanese occupation. This was during the Second World War. It was Japanese-held Korea. Soviet troops entered from the north to liberate Korea. The Americans came in from the other side to resist. They did not want a communist regime to take over Korea. So the Americans and the Soviets fought a proxy war here. They created two occupation zones in Korea, a Soviet zone and an American zone. They divided Korea along the 38th parallel. What is the 38th parallel? The line that is still the border between the two Koreas. There were plans for reunification, but Moscow and Washington did not trust each other, so each installed their own governor in Korea. Do you know who is North Korea's governor? Kim Il-sung, the grandfather of the current leader Kim Jong-un. So the relationship is old, and both sides have maintained it.
And that's not even the biggest news of the week. America's Middle East policy of death by sanctions has failed in Iran and Syria. For starters, America's plan was to, of course, destabilize the Middle East by sanctioning those countries into utter poverty, create so much pain and discontent that the people of Iran or Syria or Libya would rise up, overthrow their governments, and the U.S. would install a puppet regime that we would then control. That's how it usually always works for the United States. Well, it has failed officially this week. Iran, now just days away from becoming a world superpower, a nuclear power.
A top U.S. official has claimed that Iran has enough fissile material to build a nuclear weapon in about 12 days.
Two of them, in fact. Iran will have a nuclear weapon in 30 days. Let that sink in for a moment. So will the United States and Israel invade? They can't. It's game over. This is checkmate, and China and Russia now have Iran's back. So does Saudi Arabia, who used to ignore Iran, treated them as an enemy because the United States wanted them to. No more. Saudi Arabia has shaken hands with Iran, kicked out the United States. But it gets worse than that this week. European leaders that are in bed with the United States and NATO are losing elections, and they're losing them big. Pedro Sanchez in Spain, aligned with NATO and the World Economic Forum, just got destroyed in local and regional elections. But Erdogan in Turkey, he actually won re-election for telling the Turkish people that he won't take IMF loans, won't take money from the Western governments, aligning Turkey with Russia and China, rejecting the United States. And he won his election. The United States meddling in Turkey failed. What used to work for the United States is now failing over and over again. Using the United States dollar as a cudgel is failing. And now these countries have alternatives, a BRICS currency backed by commodities like gold and silver and oil. Countries are now scrambling to ditch the US dollar at the fastest pace in the US dollar's history. Get this, last week, more than 30 more countries announced that they want to move away from the United States dollar and join the BRICS nations. Look what happened in Syria this week. The Arab League invited Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, to join them, the pariah, the outcast, the man the United States claims is a dictator that gasses his own people. Of course, that's all been debunked. Putin has wrapped his arms around Syria, telling the West, we've got their back. Step back from Syria. Iraq, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Iran, hoarding gold and silver, ditching the US dollar, making massive new Belt and Road construction deals with China, signing oil and gas deals with Russia. This is truly rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic for the United States.
So after the White House initially lied about the spy base in Cuba, they're admitting now quietly over the weekend that, in fact, yes, the CCP has been underway with this surveillance center in Cuba about 90 miles from the Florida coast, surveilling American citizens. Your thoughts?
Yes, well, they admitted to one base since at least 2019. But there's reporting that China's actually had 3 places. One is Lourdes, which is that Soviet listening post. Actually, it was, I think, the largest Soviet listening post outside of the Soviet Union. And there's 2 more, one at Biyukal and the other at Santiago de Cuba. And I'd like to know if there is more than one. But clearly, as John Ratcliffe has said, the administration tried to deceive the American public to sugarcoat what China has been doing.
So what do you think we should be doing in terms of pushing back? I mean, Politico is claiming that the Pentagon is freaking out about a potential war with China. They discuss the, quote, Ukraine drain on the U.S. defense stockpiles and how it's cutting into our deterrent against China. The author writing, quote, some U.S. intelligence and defense officials fear that Beijing understands the deficiency in American readiness all too well and could try to exploit it by attacking or blockading Taiwan in the coming years. Gordon, your thoughts?
Well, the American people should be freaking out that the Pentagon is freaking out only now. You know, we have known for quite some time that the trend lines were really disadvantageous to us. And now we have a Pentagon that is not prepared to fight China, to defend ourselves. And this has been true even before Ukraine. And it's not just a question of they having a larger Navy than ours. It's also a question that they have types of weapons that we don't have, and which right now we have no defenses for.
A concerning new report faults the Department of Defense over its record on acquisitions of new military weapons systems. The Government Accountability Office found the delivery of items such as ships and jets continues to take longer than planned, affecting the DoD's ability to meet threats. The report analyzed the costliest weapon programs. Included in that list were the F-35 Lightning II Joint Strike Fighter and the Navy's Gerald R. Ford class of aircraft carriers. The report said challenges persist despite recent efforts intended to help deliver systems to the warfighter in a more timely manner. The GAO's Shelby Oakley says the F-35 program, quote, has been kind of a disaster from the very beginning.